So the session, the first part is going to be presented by the Arts Club, and it's going to be called the Speaking with Confidence. And I would now like to invite two speakers to do that. It's Kevin Ellis, who's the Director of Education in the Arts Club Theater Company. And with him, we'll be joined by Hilla Graf. She's the Education and Outreach Associate of the same company. So welcome, Kevin. Welcome, Hilla. I will now pass the baton to you guys.
Thank you very much, Saima. It's very, very nice to be here, and very nice to be working with Jumpstart, and thank you for asking us to be involved with this event. My name is Kevin Ellis, and I'm the Director of Education at the Arts Club Theater.
And I am Hilla Graf. I am the Education and Outreach Associate. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, just a little bit about the Arts Club Theater Company. We have been in existence for over 56 years now in the city of Vancouver. We're the largest theater company in Western Canada, and we operate three different theaters in the city of Vancouver, a small one, a medium-sized one, and a larger theater. We do about 15 to 20 plays per year. They're always a combination of musicals and dramas and comedies. Mostly contemporary work. And in our education department, we've been in existence for the last 5 years, and we do programs to support the theater and to support theater education. So these programs are built for most ages. They're skill-based programs, and there's also community building programs that we have. We often go out to our communities to bring theater educations to our local schools and our community centers, as well as other organizations. Our programs some of them are free, some of them are based on tuition, and some of them are subsidized as well. And all of them are largely supported by donors and sponsors, as the Arts Club is a non-profit organization. Hilla.
Thanks, Kevin, for introducing us. And the reason we're here is because much of our practice as theater educators is utilizing the transferable skills that drama, theater, and the performing arts have to offer. And today specifically, we're happy to share transferable skills that are connected to public speaking, confidence, and self-expression. So in the next 10 minutes or so, we'll be talking about tips and ideas on how you can present yourself with confidence through 3 different perspectives: voice, body, and mind. So I'd like to dive right into our first perspective, voice, using our voice as we're speaking. So the first element that we'd like to touch on is breathing. Breathing is so fundamental. It's one of our vital signs. We do this without realizing, but breathing can affect our voice, our body language, our emotions. It could help us feeling calmer or less calm. So one advice that we would like to provide you with is making sure or trying to take deep, good breaths rather than shallow and fast breaths. You know how sometimes when someone is after a run, if you do runs, I don't, you look like this. These are very fast, shallow breaths, and we see a lot of tension in the shoulder. That's not what we would like. What we would aspire is to have deeper breaths that will fill our lungs and our stomach. So I would encourage everybody to just try inhaling through your nose, filling your stomach and your lungs, and exhaling through your mouth. And as you're presenting your presentation, always go back to your breath. It's your friend, it's always there, and it can support all of the other systems that we are going to talk about right now.
So also closely related to breathing is projection. And what projection is projection is important to make sure what you're saying is clear. So it's speaking at an appropriate volume. And when you're doing that, when you speak at appropriate volume, it projects confidence and delivers what you want to say. So in theater, projection is extremely important so that the audience is able to hear you. And along with proper breathing, it allows you not to lose your voice when you're speaking over a long period of time. Or sometimes if you're speaking in multiple occasions and multiple events in a short period of time, you can lose your voice. So projection is an important part of that. So use your breath to help support your voice, and it allows you to be able to project. I throw it to Hilla to give us an example.
Sure, just to kind of amplify what Kevin has been saying about projection, When we talk about projection, we do not mean shout. Don't hurt your vocal cords. Don't strain yourself. Projection is kind of like the energy, the wave of energy of your voice and how far it reaches. So for example, if I'm speaking like this, then this energy kind of reaches my hand. But I want to go further. I want to make sure that the audio energy of my voice reaches to my audience, whether they're 2 meters away from me or 10 meters away from me, depending on the situation in which you're presenting. So what I find helpful is just trying to imagine your voice is kind of like a football that you're throwing. There's this kind of arc. So when you just think about this, just imagine that, and your voice will just communicate in a much more presentable, nice way. And it's also a better way to make sure that you don't hurt your vocal cords as you're speaking. One very simple thing to support your projection is opening your mouth. And that leads us to the next element of speaking that we'd like to touch on, which is enunciation. Enunciation, I see it as projection's best friend. Actors use this tool all the time. And enunciation is making sure that our words are clear, that every consonant and vowel are heard. I made that exaggerated just to make a point. And of course, normally in day-to-day talk or in public speaking, we don't go that overboard. But many of us, sometimes when we are excited or when we're nervous, we talk very fast and our words sound a little bit like one mush sometimes. I struggle with this too, and I have to remind myself and use the tools I acquired through theater to make sure I can enunciate. So one tip that we're happy to provide you with in terms of how you can practice enunciation before you give a presentation is counting from 1 to 20, when on every word you stop on every consonant and vowel. And you exaggerate for the sake of the exercise. So for example, you say 1, 2, 3, 4. So we want to hear that 4. We don't want to hear faux. As you practice this, of course, in an exaggerated way and kind of a safe setting of a learning situation, when you're actually presenting, this will kind of translate in a more enunciated way of speaking.
So proper breathing, projection, and enunciation will help you deliver your points and present yourself with confidence. These elements will also help you with what's called pacing. So pacing is making sure that you don't speak too quickly and that you take the time to breathe in between sentences and the points that you'd like to make. So taking your time between expressing your thoughts allows the listener to digest what you're saying, as well as it gives you the time to organize your next point. So you might have been in a situation where you're very excited about what you're talking about, and you have another idea ahead of you that you'd like to speak, but you're still in the current idea. And so it's very, very common for people to rush to get to their next point. But take your time, take a breath, and just keep a mental note that you are now about to start your next point. It'll just help organize what you have to say, and it'll be more relaxing for both you and the listener if you approach it that way. Hila.
Yeah, and the kind of final point I personally wanted to share with you all about voice is connected to those of you whose English isn't their first language. English isn't my first language, Hebrew is. I come from Israel. And I think all of us are often nervous about speaking in front of an audience, let alone when it's not our mother tongue. And so that can make us a little nervous, and that makes total sense. My tip or advice for you all is to remember that we're all in a journey to improve. We're constantly trying to get better at our English skills or any other language that we're acquiring. And how I view it, when you're in an event, like a performative event, quote unquote, when you're presenting your elevator pitch, this is kind of like an actor going on stage after a round of rehearsals. During rehearsals, we try to acquire different skills and we try to build up our performance as much as possible. And then the performance is we're using what we have. So I kind of call it working with your treasures. Don't try to be something you're not. Don't try to use skills you're not comfortable with. You have your set of skills, fantastic. Use them, and pace can really, really help you, making sure or supporting you, kind of pulling those treasures. So if you need to slow down or even take a break to find that word or to find that term that you want to use to make your point as clear as you'd like it to be.
So we're moving on to our next perspective, and that's the body. So the way that you place your body, it also helps in how you present yourself to make a confident elevator pitch. So keeping grounded is an important place to start. If you are able to, try to keep both of your feet on the floor to make you sit or stand in a parallel position. This way, your lower body is connected to the ground evenly. So here's an example. Hila, I don't know if you want to show an example of sitting unevenly or standing unevenly.
Sure. So it's interesting because we're on Zoom, you actually can't see what I'm doing with my legs, but I think it's interesting to see the difference. So right now I'm just crossing my legs and my left leg is just going to the side. Oops, something fell. And you can see that I'm a little bit tilted to the side. And now I'm just going to put my 2 feet on the ground, parallel and even. So you can see how that affects my whole posture, that can affect the way you see me. And it not only projects confidence to your audience, it also makes me feel more confident. So even try that, play with that. Try to like cross your legs and then put your feet on the ground. And you can feel that you usually feel more energized, more focused, and just feeling yourself in a bit of a more positive way.
Being grounded will also help with your posture. Making sure that your back is straight. This gives the illusion that you're paying attention and you're speaking with confidence. Sometimes all you need is the illusion to start with, and this will lead you to assume a position of assurance and confidence. It will also affect on how you actually feel in the moment. So slouching, here's an example, sometimes can give the impression that you might not be interested or confident in the situation. So be aware of where your body is in place.
Another physical element that could really help you feel confident and project confidence is your focus. Where are you looking at? Many of us, when we're speaking, we can get really passionate about what we're saying and our eyes can wander to the ceiling or to the floor. Try to look forward, try to look at the people you're talking to. That way they will also feel that you're connected to them and you'll also be attentive to what's going on with them at this moment.
And be aware of your hands. Try not to clench your hands too tightly. Whenever possible, try to keep your hands open. If your hands are open and you're not clenching, you often feel more open and prepared. So don't be afraid to use your hands and gesturing to express yourself. This is an important element to acting as well as to singing. It helps animate a discussion and deliver your points and keep things interesting. But make sure you don't overdo it. This is an example of me overdoing.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. And the final point we wanted to make around our body and our body language is, and this is me going to be a little bit more Instagrammy, is our outfit. What do we choose to wear? So again, we want to make sure that we're breathing properly, right? So maybe try avoiding wearing a skirt or pants that are very tight around your stomach. If we want to feel grounded and if you like wearing high heels, that's fantastic, but perhaps consider wearing heels that are not very, very high so you can still feel that kind of feeling of roundedness in your presentation.
Thanks, Hila. And the last perspective is the mind. So one thing that an actor does to make sure that the audience is believing their character is to make sure that what they're doing is sincere to them and it doesn't feel like acting. So once people actually forget that they're watching an actor, this is where an actor succeeds. So sincerity and expressing who you really are is a vital part of how you present yourself. It's also what your audience or your interviewer or person in the room want to see from the people that they talk to. So try to remember who you are and focus on perhaps other situations in your life that you've had success or are proud of, and draw from that when you're nervous and you need a confidence boost.
Yeah, and connect, I'm going to connect to that and share that another element that we can really draw from is role playing. In the theater, we play different characters, and we all have kind of different characters we're playing in our day-to-day life. Sometimes we're more goofy, sometimes we're more intellectual, sometimes we're more sensitive. And in that situation of you providing your elevator pitch, try to play a role, not in the meaning of someone else, but the person you'd like to be. So I would call it your imagined self. So perhaps imagine yourself already hired in this company, that the person you're talking to is your colleague, or imagine you're already part of that program or community. That kind of self-talk is really helpful to feeling confident and also kind of feeling that you're who you want to be. By the way, what you choose to wear can also support that. So not only it could affect the way your body and voice behave, it could also make you feel like you already belong to that environment. So feel free to choose an outfit that reflects how you would like to project yourself or express yourself in that certain environment you're trying to belong to.
And try to tell yourself not to make assumptions that the person you're talking to is not interested in what you're saying. They're usually wanting the people that they are with to succeed, as they're actively looking and wanting to connect with people. So try to tell yourself that they are interested in you and they want to hear more from you. Obviously, try to make eye contact, as this is a sign that you're making a connection with your interviewer and that you're paying attention. Sometimes not making eye contact actually makes the person you're talking to nervous. So this is particularly important when you're speaking to multiple people. It's always a good idea to take the time to focus on listening to what people are saying to you, and acknowledge this when you can by reacting to what's being said. People can often tell when your attentions are elsewhere. So think of how it can make you feel when someone you're talking to doesn't seem to be listening to you.
Thanks, Kevin. And our final point that really comes from our perspective as theater educators is practicing and learning. So rehearse, practice before you have an elevator pitch that you know of. Bring a friend or family member. Try it out a few times, and maybe with the help of your friend or family member or colleague, you can kind of identify what kind of elements you need to work on. Is it your breathing? Is it your groundedness? Is it your use of hands, and so on? And at the same time, remember that this is a learning curve, and we're always learning. This is a constant journey. One event doesn't makes a certain impact on your whole life, just like one show doesn't impact an actor's career. So all of those elements, don't overthink them as well. Choose one, choose two, try them out, but don't stress over kind of punching each and every one of them. You're great as you are, and this can only just amplify you feeling good about yourself and expressing that to others.
Thanks, Hila. So drama, acting, and theater skills, they can play a significant role in the way that you believe in yourself and present yourself to the world. So don't be afraid to take the time to prepare yourself using some of the tools and the strategies that we talked about to you guys about today. But remember that these are just pointers, and please don't overthink the process, as Hila was mentioning. These are just guideposts for you to think about along your journey. Thank you, and best of luck on your journey ahead of you. I'm going to pass to Hila to wrap things up.
Yeah. So again, we'd like to thank you all for listening, and just to give you all a shout out that if this conversation inspired any ideas or questions, feel free to reach out to us directly. I'm sure our emails can be circulated through the lovely Jumpstart team. We love to connect with people from our community wherever they are geographically. So feel free to reach out to us, and we would love to be in touch and see how we can support your work further. Thank you again for listening, and we look forward to the rest of the webinar.
Thanks, everyone.
Wow, I'm so lucky to actually moderate an event like this, but I'm also feeling very conscious now on how I'm speaking, the breathing, the enunciating, the projection, how I'm placing myself in my chair, everything, how I'm moving my hands, everything is now very conscious in my mind. Those were very, very useful tips, Kevin and Hila. I really want to thank you guys for this amazing presentation. I'm sure our refugee friends all over Canada are writing notes as you guys are talking. So I'm going to now move to our main presenter, our keynote speaker for today. And let me again go back to this. It is Serena Newen. Let me just, there you go. So our keynote speaker for today is Serena Newen. She's the Director of People Experience and Strategy, Mars Discovery District. Serena, she's an advocate and ambassador for startups, working alongside brilliant people every day to create teams that thrive in a complex and fast-moving environment. She brings 10 years of global cross-industry experience and has been consulting with notable startups to provide thought-provoking insights and solutions. So with that, Serena, I'm going to ask you to now take over from here on. Serena.
Thank you so much, Saima. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm just going to very quickly share my screen and then kick off. Before I'm really excited to be here. As Saima introduced, I come from a pretty broad background working across, the big corporates all the way to small ventures and even being an entrepreneur myself. So it's a really wonderful time to be here to share some of the insights that I've learned. I've spent a lot of time in the HR or talent space. And so meeting individuals has been a key part of my role. I've also played a lot in the startup or venture space. So hearing different entrepreneurs pitch their ideas have also been an element that hopefully I'll be able to tie in. Kevin, Hilla, thank you for your incredible presentation. I think there will be a bit of overlap because the art of the pitch does kind of fall down on those foundations of confidence as well, especially when you're meeting somebody new, somebody you're hoping to impress. It's really important that that confidence comes out. And so even though I might have some points that overlap with what's been said, I'm going to help shift the context a little bit in terms of how that then translates to you crafting your own elevator pitch. So introductions with an impact. Hilla and Kevin mentioned it should be short, and that's very, very true. Really, typically you see a pitch between 30 and 45 seconds. Definitely not longer than a minute. And remember, the point of that is because what you're trying to do is get somebody interested. You're not being asked to share all the details of your background, your history. You're not there to try to prove your credibility and worthiness. You're trying to create interest for an introduction so that you actually get more time with that individual to be able to dig in to the details of your incredible background, your experience, and your stories. So even though it feels very short, it's an important element to keep in mind is that you just want to pique that interest, and that's a key component of crafting a really impactful pitch. That in mind, even though it feels short, you don't want to rush it. So going back to this idea of pacing yourself, the clearer and more concise you can be, it exudes that confidence that Hilla and Kevin were talking about. It also provides kind of the most impactful comments that you'll need to come across in order to get that attention and kind of draw your audience in to ask for more time with you or to want to extend that conversation. So don't rush it, take your time, pace yourself, and you'll see a lot more power in those moments of the calmness that you're able to bring and the confidence that you exude. Typically, it's those first 7 seconds that you really make that snap impression. And so keep in mind that an eye contact and a smile can go really, really long way. Goes back to this idea of, are you confident? How are you standing? What's the eye contact? Are you smiling and open? And that often puts the other person at ease. And again, engaging with them becomes a lot easier when they're also at ease. Of course, you will get nervous. And so going back to the point that Hilla made around breathing, it's important to help settle yourself and stick to that pace that I spoke to earlier. So don't hesitate to, before you reach out and shake a hand, or in this case, because of COVID, you bump an elbow, take a deep breath, settle yourself, and know that this is an introduction and it's meant to be relatively informal and light, but impactful. So don't try to jam all the information in. The second point is making sure that when you craft your elevator pitch, you understand what your goal is. You want to be intentional about the 30 or 45 seconds you're taking and clearly communicate what it is that you want to achieve. Am I trying to get a job? Am I trying to get connected to somebody? Am I trying to just build a connection or get a mentor? Know exactly what it is that you're trying to achieve in that pitch so that you can stay within that time bound and collect that interest. And so you don't, find yourself rambling on and extending beyond a typical elevator pitch. I've always recommended to do a bit of self-reflection before you go into any event. Self-reflection helps ground you. And again, what is it that you want? It helps ground you in what you're trying to exude, the elements of yourself that you want to bring forward. We are individuals, we're complex. And so when you ground yourself and take that time to self-reflect before attending an event or meeting somebody new, it always helps you kind of stick to your core story. Once you know what you want, keep in mind that you have to also know the audience that you're coming into. And so understanding, are you going to be talking to recruiters? Are you going to be talking to leaders? Are you going to be talking to potential peers? Having that kind of context and a bit of research beforehand will help you understand how you might want to bring up the most relevant points about yourself to, again, attract that interest. Your elevator pitch is just there to get them kind of hooked, and then you reel them in for a deeper meeting at the end. You also might want to make sure that the person that you're speaking to is able to connect the dots of how they can help. And so understanding what you want and making sure you embed that in the first little bit of your elevator pitch will help them understand, okay, I can help connect this individual into my network. I can help connect them to my HR team, or I can point them into the direction of a job that I know is available that they might be interested in. So really take that time to understand, what are your goals? The next important factor is make sure you're telling a story. Stories are things that people remember. I can go through very easily and list off a bunch of my experiences and say, here's all the things I've done, all the accomplishments. I, on the other end, won't remember that. I need a bit of a story behind it. Who are you? Why are you here? Why is this important to you? How can I help? You start to tell a bit of a story. So make sure that you're organizing the points you want to bring up in a way that helps tell that story a little bit deeper. And never end with a dead end. Make them feel compelled to engage a little bit further, ask a question, have a very clear ask of, can you connect me, or do you have an extra 30 minutes that we can connect? It's difficult at the end of an elevator pitch where you just kind of stop and they don't really know where you want them to take the next conversation. Often what that leads to is, oh, well, Serena, it was great to meet you. Enjoy the rest of the event. And then you lose that opportunity to engage them a little bit further. So make sure that you're asking a question, inviting a meeting or a call, or asking them to be connected or to learn more about another opportunity that you've heard of. That being said, as much as you want to be super prepared with what you want and to tell a story and know what you're asking of them, be ready, be dynamic, and be ready. Typically you're going to want more than one elevator pitch. And the reason for that is because depending on who you're talking to, depending on which skill sets you want to bring forward, there will be different versions of your elevator pitch that you'll want to bring out for certain scenarios. Is it a general networking thing? Is it a recruitment event where you know very clearly what job you're looking for? Is it a general mentorship kind of networking opportunity? Make sure you have different pitches ready so that you can adapt and pivot and change your style to meet whatever needs you're trying to go after. Since you'll have a few already prepared, one thing you'll always want to do a double check on is to make sure you're avoiding any jargon. So any very technical language. The rule of thumb here is, if your grandmother or your neighbor down the street or your friends and family understand what you're saying and what you want, it's typically a good pitch. Unless the only exception to that is if it's a deep technical area where you have to use the jargon to build your credibility. But for the most part in Canada, when you're trying to meet people or trying to build a network, you keep it to as simple language as possible so that people understand exactly what it is that you're looking for and how they can help early on. And, being prepared as a bit of that follow-up is also very important. Don't end on that dead end. Instead, lead with a question or be prepared to give a business card. If you don't have a business card, connect with them on LinkedIn or ask if you can connect with them on LinkedIn. Make sure that you're not ending things and are prepared in case they say, great, do you have a business card for me? Or great, when can we meet? Be prepared to answer those questions, because if you got your elevator pitch right, there's usually actions that will follow that you want to be ready for. And lastly, but not least, don't forget to thank them for their time. You know, in our rush and excitement, sometimes you can often forget to say, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to meet with you. I will follow up with a few times in my calendar that I can meet next week. Make sure that you're mindful of that. And hey, if they decline and there isn't a connection or a next step, politely wish them well, say thank you again for your time, and then offer to stay connected in case anything else comes across their radar. So there's always a great way, whether it ends positively with a clear next step or ends with a polite decline, a very seamless way that you can help wrap things up. Last but not least, in terms of crafting your elevator pitch, similar to what Hilla and Kevin have said, practice, 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 but have fun. You're meeting people. It's meant to be a fun piece. You've got to get your pitch to a point where it feels like conversation. So if you're feeling like it's very structured, practice a little bit more. You'll find a really natural flow to the way that you want to present yourself, the facts that you want to bring up, and how you want to follow up. And so if the more you practice, record yourself, ask your friends to watch, have fun in the process, laugh if you make a mistake. You know, that's all part of the journey here. And, you know, any networking opportunity, any introduction that you get is just an opportunity for you to practice. It's an opportunity for you to meet somebody. And, you know, most people are quite good and intentional in that, recognizing when they are meeting you and you are giving that pitch at a networking event, hopefully there's something that they can do there for you. So have fun with it. With that being said, I think we're just about at time, so I will pass it back to Saima. Thank you so much. And then I think in the Q&A portion, we'll be able to enter into some questions.
Thank you so much, Serena. That was a wonderful presentation. I took notes myself so that I can practice that, you know, the pace, the timing, the goal, telling a story, be dynamic and ready. So these are all very valuable skills to remember when we're crafting our elevator pitch. So now we're going to one of the most interesting part of our event, which is telling stories and hearing from our refugee friends from across Canada. Now, I want you to still, the audience, to remember that, you know, after this part, we will be going to the Q&A. So I want you to start writing your elevator pitch if you haven't started that already. So by writing your elevator pitch, remember what you heard from Kevin, from Hilla, and from Serena. Remember all of those and just write a short 25 to 30 seconds pitch so you can tell us that after this Q&A. So with that, I would like to now start off with the first person today. We have three refugees, Parama Ambara from Vancouver, then we have Mohannad Alfifi from Calgary, and then we have Ricardo Amaro from Toronto. So let us start from the West Coast. So Parama, I'll start off with you. Please do tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'll ask you a few more questions, including your elevator pitch. You have 10 minutes. So go ahead, Parama. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Parama. I'm from Vancouver. I came here as a refugee from Indonesia with my partner as well. And here, because my field is in auditing and most specifically in forensic tax auditing. So it was a bit hard for me to find a job here in Canada because some of it are like a very small industry to begin with compared to some of the larger ones. And I think that people here, they have connections, and being a refugee myself, it's kind of hard to have like connections when you're new to the place. And sometimes it's a foreign territory that you've never been to before. but I did connect with Jumpstart Refugee, and I did have a mentor from them as well. And I currently work with accounting department in provincial health of government BC. And I was working with as their account receivables.
Wow, you already answered all the questions that I was kind of leading towards. You said that you had a little bit difficulty because your area of expertise was so unique. Are you now happy with the job that you're doing? Are you still looking forward to something else? How was the job search anyways?
Yeah, so I'm still a bit in job search, because I realize when you hear, like, you found that sometimes like just your education background from your home country is not enough. Sometimes there's always have to be a professional designation here that you have to pursue. And for me in my field, I think that would be certified professional accounting, the CPA designations, and CIA, a certified internal auditor. So I kind of try to lay low for now and start to pursue those designations that in the end I will get back in my field in forensic auditing. So yeah.
Even though your profession is very unique, but the challenges that Parama is facing, I'm sure our audience are facing the same. And now the most exciting part, Parama, give us your elevator pitch, where this is what we're waiting for, and hopefully we'll get some feedback from our panelists on that too. So go ahead, Parama.
Okay, sure. Yeah, my name is Paramambara. I'm an investigative tax auditor of 6 years. Most recently, last year, I worked with the Ministry of Finance in Indonesia. And what we do is conducting forensic auditing in some of the biggest multinational company. And on a day-to-day basis, we would work on their accounting records, detecting their inconsistencies, inefficiencies, and most importantly, sometimes we would unravel fraud hidden within their systems. Like the last time we audited one of the large manufacturing company, we found inconsistencies in their accounting system. I kind of traced this whole manufacturing process and found they put some extra charge to the cost of manufacturing, which in fact is one of their transfer pricing policy scheme. And in the end, like, the company is reporting more loss than profit. And we detect this, we think this is unauthorized, and in the end, we give the company a big fine. So like day-to-day basis, I'm very passionate with forensic audit because we always unravel new things, we uncover new things that is hidden between their systems, and like, it's always almost like solving puzzle pieces in their transfer pricing schemes. But right now I'm working with the revenue services with provincial health of government BC, and in my job search right now I'm looking for a company or another government entity that have a big case to investigate, like financial fraud, tracing and securing evidence, like something that's not just always stagnant, like every day would be a new challenges for me. So there will be something that I look forward to, like new cases to unravel. So yeah, I hope we can have a coffee somewhere to stay connected. So yeah, that's it.
Wonderful. That was a very powerful elevator pitch from my end, but I'm not the professional here. So I'll open it to Serena, Hilla, Kevin, if you guys could unmute. And Serena, I'll start with you. If you can give Parama a little bit of a feedback, and if you can keep that under 1 minute yourself, that'll be much appreciated. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, okay, I'll keep it short and concise then. Parama, great to meet you, and great pitch. You kept the language simple for something that clearly has a lot of technical nuance. So thumbs up on all of that. And you gave a great example of how you really drive some value and had a clear ask in terms of what are you looking for and can we connect for coffee? Very strong pitch. The one piece of feedback, pace yourself a little bit, and talk to one fact if that's kind of a clear one, because you can go quite technical and complex with, I'm sure, with some of the cases that you've solved, but really, really great work.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Serena. Hilla and Kevin, go ahead.
Elevator pitch. I agree with everything Serena has just said. One thing that I really liked in that presentation is you kind of gave us a little bit of a taste of what your day-to-day experience like in your work, and that got me really hooked, really interested, even though I'm not from your field. So that created kind of like a certain connection between us, some sort of empathy and interest, and that was fantastic. Especially your use of metaphor. It's like a puzzle piece. So for people who might not be from your field or from your specific profession, that's a really great way to engage with what you do. I agree about pacing, that again, it's a challenge that many of us experience, but just take it slow. Sometimes we feel that we're too slow, but often it's the opposite. So play around with that as you practice and you'll find the right speed. And one specific thing that I would advise on slowing or on pace is when you introduce your name. That's the first thing that you do. And sometimes we say it so fast, I'm Hilagraph, and then, wait, what? So one tip that I actually have learned recently is perhaps consider starting with saying, I am Parama Umbara. So first your first name and then your full name. And then it's a little easier for people to like immediately connect with you and be attuned to what you're going to say moving forward.
Thanks, Hila. That's the James Bond way of saying it, I think. Parama, that was great. I agree with what both Hila and Serena have said. I was going to say that your enunciation is very good, and you're a very dynamic speaker. So it's very interesting to hear what you're saying, because you animate your voice very well, which means you kind of put life to it when you're speaking, and you look very sincere, and you sound sincere what you're saying. I was also going to say just to slow down. And watch your breathing. Breathing is always the thing to think about. Just take a breath between each sentence rather than keep going, because then you're in trouble sometimes halfway through a sentence, right? And that makes you go faster. So that's what I would suggest is to, and as Hila mentioned, saying your name is the easiest thing to do in a lot of ways. So that can maybe set your pace right there by being conscious of something that you don't really have to think about because you know your name. But then you can think about the pace of how you say your name, and that will affect what you do moving forward, I think. So that's all I want to say. The content was lovely. It was great to meet you and to get to know you through your elevator pitch. Thank you, Parama.
Wow. So it's like, my name is Saima Jamal. I'm not James Bond, but I'll remember doing that too. We'll take another question. We've got my boss, Milad Sabai, the Director of Operations for Jumpstart Refugee Talent, joining us. He has a comment on Parama's elevator pitch too. Milad, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for that, Parama. I just wanted to add that, part of telling your elevator pitch is you want people to connect with you and to relate with you. While I think that your presentation was very good, it was also very technical. Don't forget, we're all people, and people, we connect with one another. Don't be shy to say, hi, I'm Parama. I'm originally from Indonesia. I came to Canada a few years ago. Believe me, this is a very welcoming and receptive audience here in Canada. We're very accepting of newcomers and diverse cultures and diverse backgrounds. So, I'm not saying to talk, entirely about your refugee journey to Canada, but, putting a bit of your personal story mixed in with your professional story can really help people connect with you even a little more. But thank you very much for your pitch.
Thank you.
That's very valuable, Milad. And Parama, I'm sure these 4 advice that you got, you can take it home and improve your elevator pitch and practice it with friends and colleagues. Hopefully it'll make it much more better in your career. So now we're gonna move to the prairies, which is my city boy, Mohannad Al-Fifi. I'm really happy to present him today. And although I know Mohannad pretty well, but I would love the rest of Canada to get to know him. So Mohannad, please go ahead. Tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll talk a little bit more about your job search. So go ahead.
Thank you, Saima. Hey, everyone. My name is Mohannad Al-Afifi. I'm a registered social worker in Calgary, Alberta. And that's, of course, thanks to my mentor who pushed me to get my registration and was like really amazing and just helping me navigate and just go through like the whole process of just being registered and starting to find work here in Calgary. I work mainly with children. Most of my life experience was just working in child protective services and just supporting children who have been through trauma in their lives and just ensuring that families are able to connect with their children who have either suffered PTSD or have any like disability or challenge that they would be facing in life. Um, yeah, so that's, I think, for that question.
Mohammed, I know that you're talking about your story in your job search and what you've been doing, but can you tell us a little bit about where you gained that experience, and how you found the job search in Canada?
Yeah, so most of my experience have been either in the US or in Palestine, working with children. In US, I was working as mentor for some like refugee kids and other kids who were like trying to get their SAT exams and just like trying to go like through their like GED, and just like those people who just moved to the US and were not able to just succeed in life due to like just different life difficulties that they've faced during like just being at home with like a lot of conflicts and a lot of just like difficult situations. Here in Canada, currently I work as a behavioral support for challenged children, mainly those who are on the spectrum or suffer from autism, as everyone know it, or children who have like some learning difficulties. So I try to go there and help them and just try to figure out what's the best way that they can learn in. So I just go in and try just like to just to wiggle my way through like what they are like, what's in their brain, like how they're thinking, how they're feeling, what are they like doing, and then try to figure out ways to help them learn things and on their own and just like help them achieve like independency in life. Um, yeah, so job search in Canada has been a little bit difficult for me. When I first came here to Canada, I was blessed to get a job with the Catholic Family Service here in Canada, and that was like within like my second month, and I was really happy with that job. But it was a mat leave cover, so I had like after 6 months, the person who was like out just came back, and then I got into like the whole loop of just like, and that happened in February, so I lost my job when COVID hit. So that was like just, it wasn't the best time to lose a job. But right now I'm like, I found this thing as like, or like just being a behavioral support as an individual contractor, which is not very stable, but it's something that is getting me by and just getting me more experience to be here in Canada and just experience the whole system and just see how things work here. Simon, we can't hear you.
So it looks like even though you have a job, but you're still looking for something better to come up, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wonderful. So now we got a little bit of an idea about Mohammed. So now we're gonna go to the time we've been waiting for. Mohammed, please go tell us about your elevator pitch, and then we'll hear back from our panelists. So go ahead, Mohammed.
Thanks, Simon. Hey, I'm Mohammed, a registered social worker in Alberta. You know, one of the best things that would connect us to our clients is the human experience. As a refugee working with refugees, I'm able to connect with refugees on the personal level. With an MSW degree, education, and a whole life experience of living and working in conflict zones, I understand the trauma that refugees go through and the lifelong healing process that it takes people to adjust and heal from their traumas. I would be more than happy to start paying back to the community that once welcomed me here in Canada when I came to Canada a year ago and start helping my fellow refugees resettled. I would love to have a cup of coffee with you to discuss the services that you provide to refugees and how I can add for these services. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. That was short and sweet. Wonderful. So I will again start with Serena. Serena, you go ahead, and then we'll go to Hila and Kevin.
Thank you, Saima. Mohammed, nice to meet you, and incredible work that you're doing with children in that space. I know it's, challenging. I've done some volunteer work there, so congratulations on all that you do here in Canada for these wonderful children. That said, great pitch. That connection in the beginning of you saying, we're all humans, and the one thing that you can understand. I appreciate that kind of drawback and connection point. Your pace was good. It was clear. I'll give one piece of feedback, which is practice, practice, practice. It still felt a little scripted. And so as you get more comfortable with the flow of your pitch, I think it can become a lot more conversational, and that connection point becomes a little bit stronger when it feels like a natural flow.
That was fantastic. I agree again with Serena's points. I liked how you started with a very approachable language that is connecting you directly to the person you're talking to. So, hey, immediately there's like a person there. Immediately I, as a listener, am with you and listening to you. There's also the dynamic in your voice was interesting in the way that you emphasized some words. For example, you said 1 year in Canada, and that stood out to me. So that's something that you can use even in some other elements in your pitch for those words that you want to highlight. And then the final element that I'd like to add is using your posture. It felt like your hands are a little bit closed, so you were a little bit hunched down, and that might also be connected to the configuration of your computer or device, which is something we're all still figuring out. But try to play with that if you can find a way that you won't have to feel like you need to lean in order to feel connected to what's happening on the screen. Perhaps your hands will be more free to have you use them, as well as just have a bit more open chest, better breathing, and so on. Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, Mahana. The work that you're doing and you have experience in and what you want to do is very inspiring. We can relate to that very much at the Arts Club too, in terms of the work that we're looking at doing. So yeah, great opening. It caught my attention right away, and I was hooked from that point on. So it's really important. I almost wrote exactly the same thing down that Serena did verbatim, and that is try to make it a little more conversational. Because everything is so great. You have a very resonant voice, and you have a lot of natural dynamics to it. It's for me, it was just a tad scripted, just a little bit. So, and I guess it all depends on the situation you're in. But play around with making it a little more your own, as if you're talking to a person. Yeah, otherwise I thought it was really good. You have a very, very good voice for speaking naturally, and not everybody does, and so that's great. Thanks, Mohammed.
Thank you so much for the feedback. That was awesome.
Yes, thank you, Serena, Kevin, and Hella. I am now going to, before I even remind everybody to start raising their hand, Mohammed, one feedback that I'd give you is when I first met you, one of the things that really struck to me is the experience that you gained in Gaza working with children. You know, how you grew up in the war, and your dad was a psychologist himself. So I think that history of you experiencing that and how you even got into this profession is so interesting that it'll actually provide a lot of very valuable options in there. So just to keep that in mind. Okay, so now I'm gonna go to our final speaker who has been waiting. But before we even do that, I want to remind all our audiences we'll be going to you right after Ricardo. So have your elevator pitches ready, and we're gonna be turning your audio on. And remember, on the bottom there's you go click on the participants, then you click on the raise hand, and then whoever raises their hands first will be going to them. So now, Ricardo, here is your time. We're so excited to hear your elevator pitch. But before that, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. So first, thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure to be in this event and with such brilliant panelists and peers. So thank you so much. I'm from Brazil. I arrived in Canada last year with my partner, and we are living in Toronto now. I'm studying industrial engineer, and I'm master in business. Back in Brazil, I worked in banking, management consulting, and lastly, I was an entrepreneur and worked and I own a hair salon in Brazil. And at some point, when I had hair salon, my partner and I had a very serious violent episode in Brazil. And Brazil seems to be an open country with laid back, but the reality is there is a lot of violence and racism, and it happened to me and my partner. So we decided to come to Canada as refugees, and I think that was one of the best decisions that we had, being so welcome in this country with so many people willing to help us. And in Canada, I've been working as a volunteer in a social service organizations called PWA. It's People with AIDS. And many of our clients are also refugees. So there I have the chance to develop relationship with peers and learn more learn what other people are going through in this whole process. And I've also been working in short-term jobs, and still looking for a longer-term opportunity here.
Thank you. How are you finding the job search so far? You know, what are the barriers you're coming across? You know, if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's job search here in Canada is very different from where I came from. So I need to adapt and learn new skills on the job search process to move on. So for instance, networking is super different from back home, back in Brazil. And I had to learn how to approach people, how to develop conversations, how to do the coffee chats, especially at this point that we are doing all virtually and it's harder to connect with people. Also, I would say applications are super different. So I had to learn how to target resumes and prepare myself to in the interview process with all the behavioral questions that we had. But what helped me a lot in this process was my mentor that I met through Jumpstart in the Welcome Talent program Canada, who is a super accessible person. It's a great communicator, and he's been always willing to help me. And I think without the program, we wouldn't have the opportunity to meet. So when you get in a new place without knowing other people and you have to integrate in the society, and as a refugee, there's I would say some additional challenges because you have to go through the whole process of the hearing and documentations and so on. So for me, it was very important to have someone to discuss ideas and understand what is the point of view of recruiters here, what is expected from candidates, and having a safe place to discuss and chat and be myself was amazing. So I'm really grateful to Jumpstart to having connected us. It's been such a great experience.
Thank you, Ricardo. That was excellent. Now it's the time has come. We would love to hear your fantastic elevator pitch. So go ahead, make it, please.
Sure. Well, as a project manager and management consultant with global consulting firms like Ernst & Young, I learned to help business grow. In the last years, as an entrepreneur in Brazil, I learned to think like a owner. So I was able to pursue results and maximize customer satisfaction. Now I'm seeking opportunities to relaunch my career in Canada. I'm looking to work with organizations that want to improve operational efficiency and that grow with them. My name is Ricardo Amaro. I'm master in business. I have a long history of many happy clients impressed by my ability to improve processes. And what do you need help with?
Thank you. That's wonderful. Almost like a commercial. Serena, you go ahead first.
Hi, Ricardo. Nice to meet you. Really a pleasure. I don't know if I shared this earlier, but I lived in Brazil for a year coming out of university for one of my first jobs. So great to have you here in Canada. I had a wonderful experience in Brazil when I was there, and welcome. That said, great pitch. I think you really highlighted some of the incredible transferable skills that a lot of organizations are looking for. So, that's one thing that I didn't mention. It's that transferability of some really key important things that open up a lot more doors. So love that you really drilled in on that value that you can bring. Just on a quick feedback note so that I could pass it on to the other panelists, open with your name first. I think it's really hard for folks to connect to a nameless individual when it is a bit more of an in-person event. If it was a scenario that called for you to open up, it's a bit more of that catchy, like, guess who I am moment. I think you had a good opening, but typically on a one-to-one scenario or an introduction, you definitely want to lead with your name first, because you had a great story and great experiences to follow that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo. That was fantastic. Again, so interesting to hear everybody's personal stories and journeys and how those are connected with your professional stories and passions. I agree with Serena of starting and also intertwining throughout the presentation a little bit more of your personal perspective and your passion towards what you do. I mean, your passion through your presentation, through your smile, your posture, all those kind of physical elements was very clear, but I would emphasize that a little bit more with the text, what you're saying. I loved how you took a break at some point. It really felt like you're starting a new theme. And taking a break is something that we often forget to do, and you actually remembered to do that, so kudos to you. One thing that was really interesting is that you ended the presentation with reaching out. What do you need? Again, the tone was a little bit formal. It seemed like a text, actually. I think it would really catch as like on your website or your social media page. But I think using that throughout or towards the end of your elevator pitch is like, okay, like, how can I help you? Or is there, what are you looking for? Is a really great way of finishing your elevator pitch from a monologue and turning it into a dialogue. Now you're starting the conversation with that person. Great job.
Thank you.
Fantastic, Ricardo. I guess the problem of being the last person to give feedback is every point I was going to make has been made for the most part. I can maybe just highlight and double up on some of them. Yeah, I mean, making it a little more conversational was one thing I had written down as well. But I liked the flow of it. I liked it was very organized and very easy to follow, and it felt like you were going from point to point with a trajectory in mind, right? And ending, as Hila said, with the question and how you can be a service to the person you're talking to. I think it was what's really effective about how you did this pitch is your facial expressions, as Hila was mentioning as well, is your very engaging face to listen to and to engage with. So with a smile and with the way it was animated. So I think that was very effective. And luckily that's part of how you speak. So that's always going to be part of the package. So I thought it was really, really great. I'd like to hear more.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, Hila, and Serena, and thank you very much, Ricardo, for coming to our panel and presenting and telling us about yourself and your elevator pitch. Thank you to all the panelists. That was excellent hearing from you.